All right, thanks, Heather. I'm telling you, it's a tremendous program you want to take advantage of. Well, welcome to day 2. Tremendous day yesterday, and it's going to get even better, no doubt about it. And be sure, as mentioned earlier, connect with Heather while you're here, learn more about the programs offered by AUSA Center for Leadership. We also do leadership classes for the Army, active, guard, and reserve. And we've done 50,000 soldiers in the last 2 years, all for free for the Army. And it's absolutely, as Heather mentioned, with tremendous fellow leadership fellows who have amazing experience. So I hope you had a great time yesterday. Again, they were really tremendous panels. And to jumpstart this morning, we want to thank IBM for the coffee and the breakfast out there. Thanks, IBM, for sponsoring that. A lot of people taking advantage of that. Nobody's hungry out there. That's good. Ready to go. We'll kick off this morning. We got an exceptional officer who's done an amazing job, and kind of our host here, Lieutenant General Mohan, Deputy Commanding General and Acting Commander, United States Army Material Command. Very excited to have. So, Chris, come on up. The floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope everybody's doing great. And yesterday I had to sit and listen to. Not had to sit and listen to. Strike one. But I had the opportunity to listen to Tommy Battle welcome everybody to the great city of Huntsville and the Greater Tennessee Valley. And I just have to tell you, I need to echo what he said. And this is a wonderful place. And for those of you that haven't been here before, take a moment, get out and check things out, because this is a dynamic town. This is a dynamic area, and it's a really great place to live, work, and thrive. And we're really proud of what we do here. We're also really proud of the relationship that I have on the Arsenal, and all my partners, 65 different partners on the Arsenal, has with the local community. So good morning, everybody. Thanks again to General Brown and the entire AUSA team for sponsoring this event. It's a great opportunity for us to get together and talk about relevant things that are really important for our country. So somebody asked me last night, hey, so what do you get out of this? And I would tell you is that I got to meet with 6 different industry partners yesterday afternoon that in a very compressed time schedule, where we were able to draw and pull the thread, from one industry partner to another industry partner to another industry partner, and in a very compressed timeline. And that's powerful when we're able to do that. So again, thanks to the AUSA team. So this morning, you're going to get a view from my foxhole about the way I see the world from the lens in the Army Material Command. And we're going to dive and talk about how we're doing continuous transformation of sustainment of our ready combat formations. But before I talk about it in detail, I think I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to share a few thoughts about our Army. Our people, our families, and our mission, and the change that many of us have been experiencing that continues to roll through. Life, it's full of change. In fact, change is the only thing that's truly permanent. And I will tell you that as we've gone through this, I've taken a step back and reflected in my career. September will be 36 years of the time periods when I've seen massive changes. The first one, and there's two time periods that I think that I draw a parallel to. The first one is when I came out of Desert Shield, Desert Storm as a second lieutenant, got promoted to first lieutenant, and we did the downsizing. And look, I was single. I was just trying to stay off the blotter, right? But I remember my boss getting a letter and saying, "Hey, you've got a fork in the road." And as we were downsizing, and then the second one, so I reflected back that, and then the second one was the 2-year period after 9/11, where we were going the other way, where we exploded capability in the Army, we exploded force structure, we exploded the thing, and we totally re-engineered ourselves to meet the needs of the nation. And so with those and think about all the opportunities we had. I was a field grade officer at that point. Think about all the opportunities and how we've fundamentally changed as an Army. I think we're going through a period like that now, But the thing that's not going to change is that we all know that, and when I talk to my teammates, that we have a solemn responsibility to our country to support and defend, and that's what makes it important. And so I think that's important to reflect on. So before I really start, we're focused on two big things in the Army Material Command: delivering ready combat formations and enhancing the soldier experience. And about everything we do has to be directly linked to one of those two big lumpy things. And they're important, not only because they're important for our country, but it's important because that's what my boss has told me to do. And rule number one, right? Do what your boss tells you to do. And so what I'm going to do today is try to give you a lens in the way I think about particularly that first one, delivering ready combat formations, and the things that I think that you need to hear from me that are really important. And so I'm going to start by giving you kind of like a vignette. And I've used this one before, so bear with me, but it's important to see how we continue to iterate on the things that we're doing and how we're getting better and how we're accelerating our efforts to get better. And so this is the scene setter of what I believe the future battlefield could look like. And I say could because if we don't get it right, we won't look like this. But it's all right at our fingertips. So 5 years into the future, we're engaged overseas in a large-scale ground combat operation, pick an enemy. Here's a potential scenario. A forward unit is preparing to do a deep strike with a HIMARS weapon system. Everybody knows the lethality of the HIMARS. And maybe that strike is scheduled to take place from a small island in a small island chain. And you know the lethality of the battle of the HIMARS, how important it is, but that crew has a critical fault. It's a hard part that's broken. In today's environment, by the way, they don't have that hard part on their hand because they were delivered, that HIMARS was delivered by an autonomous watercraft. In today's environment, that weapon system's off the battlefield until we can get that part to the crew. And so as a result, the unit won't fire, another asset has to get tasked, et cetera, et cetera. You can see what happens. But in the world we envision, that HIMARS crew, they jump onto a telemaintenance chat. And they talk to not only their higher headquarters, but they potentially talk all the way back to the engineer that helped design that system back in CONUS. And they help walk them through the depot level requirement and the depot level repair to diagnose that, and then they identify the part that they need. But at the same time, once they identify that part they need, then it gets tasked off to either one of our capabilities or an allied capability, so that we can use the principles of advanced manufacturing and produce that part. Here's an important part. We're going through this on the basis that we have the tech data in order to manufacture that part, and we have the machine and the process certified so that we can manufacture that part. So as the crew continues their telemaintenance process, the support team, wherever it might be, another island, etc., is manufacturing that part. So this approach, because we don't have to ship the part from CONUS, dramatically reduces lead times compared to traditional logistics, which, as you know, can take weeks to pull the part off a system, put it in a distribution system and pipeline and send it. And so as we focus on this vignette, we talk about things or layers, as I call them, as we add layers to this vignette to show and to focus on the capabilities that we need to produce. So not only do we print the part using advanced manufacturing capabilities, but then we go pick that part up with a sustainment UAS capable of carrying cargo. That drone is programmed, designed, and developed to operate in contested environments, and it delivers that part to the point of need. And once the drone drops off the part at the specific grid coordinates generated by the unit, the crew reconnects with the telemaintenance on their telemaintenance channel, and maybe they use virtual reality headsets, and they install that part and bring that weapon system back online, and then they complete their fire mission. So this is a future state, but let me assure you that we're much closer to this future state than we've ever been. So let's talk about that future state, telemaintenance. Look, we've been doing it for every day for several years in support of our Ukrainian partners. This concept was developed by a U.S. Army warrant officer, and we have now taken it off the battlefield and started to integrate telemakings concepts and capabilities into our combat training centers. And this has been very successful both here in CONUS and overseas. But what if we don't have to call back? What if we don't have to connect to the network in order to complete that telemaintenance? What if we use a chatbot or a AI-enabled telemaintenance capability that uses low compute power that the crew has right there on their hands on a tablet? I've seen it. We're doing it right now in testing, where we're doing complex radar repair using a chatbot that walks the crew through the steps necessary to do that trouble. So depot level task enabled by AI, incorporated at the crew level. That's just one thing that we're focused on. The next layer, advanced manufacturing. We're expanding this one rapidly. We're actively producing advanced manufacturing parts at the Joint Manufacturing Technology Center, or JMTC, at Rock Island. And so, for instance, we've got 500, and look, we have a data repository. And so as we get these tech data files, we add them to our data repository. It's kind of clunky. We're working on it. We got some industry partners that are helping us to take a look at how we make it better and faster. But we've got close to 600 parts in that data repository right now, and we're training users all the way from the tactical level all the way to the strategic level on how to access it. And we've got close to 400 users right now, and that is growing up. That number is growing every day. So we've already printed a couple hundred parts for field requirements, and we're currently on a sprint for the manufacturing of unmanned aerial systems. And so, as one, you go to PCC, pre-command course, and you give your spiel, and then you get your anonymous comments. As one of the anonymous commenters said, "Hey, General, we've been printing in our garages. Our kids have been printing in our garages for the last 10 years. Tell me something new." But so here's. I was like, well, damn, we're printing titanium, But here's what's new. So this is an example of the first UAS we printed. We got the file 3 days later. We printed our first UAS, and we've printed multiple systems since then. But the key is that we're printing this in an industrial facility with an eye on the ability for units to print the repair parts on their own organic capability. The other piece is that we take it, and because we do industrial level design and printing, we take it and turn this into a capability where initially we can print, maybe 100 a month. With some very simple facilitization, advanced processes, we can scale to 10,000 a month. And that is, again, at our fingertips. And then the critical piece again is we own 100% of that tech data. Now, we have to make some decisions whether the country needs us and the Army wants us to print 10,000 UAS in an industrial facility. But the key piece for me and for our team is we know how to do it, and we're doing it in support of field units. That one, as we scale that one, that will go to the National Training Center, where it will be given to the OPFOR so that they can greater sensitize units to what it's like to operate in a UAS saturated capability. And it's about 2/3 of the cost of what we're currently paying. So this technology is evolving rapidly. And then as we think to the future, how do we continue to make those engineering changes, and what machines do we need to facilitize in the organic industrial base, which will allow us to go faster. We also at Rock Island, and you can go to the next photo, we have the world's largest 3D printer, right? And this is called the jointless hull printer. It's one of one in the world. And when we finally get it proved out, and I say finally because this is hard, it'll be able to print a vehicle whole. And so when you do continuous printing of that type, you get a much stronger and lighter body because there's no welds in it. And so we're proving this out right now. We're printing wing stays for Boeing right now. or I should say one of our industry partners, as we prove this out. But here's the other thing though, we need to understand, and we do in AMC, we understand that the cat is out of the bag, right? 3D printing, advanced manufacturing is exploding across our Army. And so we don't want to constrain that. We want to nurture it, and we want to take advantage of the ingenuity of the American soldier and help them do things at the tactical level, at the operational level that makes sense and facilitates them. So here's an example. Before Christmas, I was down at Fort Stewart, and I had the opportunity to walk through the Mohan Innovation Center. And there I talked to a specialist. And when a specialist says, "Hey, General, check this out," it's like a warrant officer saying, "Hey, hold my beer," right? You pay attention because something's going to happen. And he showed me where he had designed a fixture that mounted on the bottom of one of their UASs that they had designed. They had designed it that you could stick a hand grenade in, and you could fly that UAS over a target, and using a servo that again they bought off of Amazon. You could drop that hand grenade on a potential adversary. That's the kind of innovation that's happening and is exploding across our Army. And so going back to our UAS, look, as an Army, we have added 3D printers into our metalworking and machining shop sets, which are fielded at the brigade level. Our trick is to give the unit the tech data so that they can print appropriately at the brigade level and connect that tactical edge all the way back to the strategic, break those stovepipes that we currently have. And so that capability we have deployed down at the brigade level will not only give you the machining, subtractive manufacturing, but also the 3D printing, which is additive manufacturing, which is combined together. It's a critical capability. And as we do reverse engineering of parts, we need to think through what is available at the brigade level, what is available at the division, corps, et cetera, all the way back to us. And we're working on that right now. So some will argue that advanced manufacturing is expensive. While it certainly can be, we have the potential to reverse engineer parts and create processes that also address critical faults that are causing parts to break in the first place. And so also at the Mohan Innovation Center, there was a master sergeant that had designed an impeller for a coolant pump. They were having critical failures of this pump. They had submitted the quality deficiency report, but at the same time they took the pump apart and found where the impeller was impacting the side of the housing. They reverse engineered, manufactured one, and brought up 28, 25, 26 vehicles in 3rd Infantry Division. And so it's not just, they designed a better part. And so it's not just designing a replacement part, they designed a better part. And so when we think through the advantages of advanced manufacturing, that's one of the things that always jump out. And so also when we design and print parts, we can print it's however many we need. We don't have to go out to industry where, look, manufacturing capability in this country is constrained. We don't have to say, hey, we want to print 100 of these or 1,000 of these. We can print 2 or 3 of them. And then we also don't have to pay to store it. We don't have to pay to move it, et cetera. So you can see the cost benefit analysis. But the big thing is this helps us get units, equipment off the deadline report. So readiness, and we're willing to pay a premium for readiness. So now I think it's the time to talk about the digital thread. So how do we think through actually designing those parts and the approval process? And I will tell you that we're investing in the digital thread. We already have the Apache, the UH-60, the 113, and now we're doing the M88 through one of our partnerships. And when we get that digital thread, it's not just one part, it's the entire weapon system. And it includes the pieces in the process that the computer simulation and modeling. So they do simulation and stress testing of the parts They also do them and do the digital thread with an eye on using advanced manufacturing to produce some of the parts. Now, this is the part that we have to attack from my standpoint. We have to attack the approval process. Because look, we have one process, whether it's a coffee cup or the Jesus nut that hangs that holds the rotor on a helicopter, we have one process. And so how do we get to a risk-based approval process so we can rapidly take the digital thread, print the parts that we need, and move out on the battlefield to produce those parts, while at the same time making sure that we have the necessary steps in there so that the truly critical parts, that we run them full through testing. We've got to get out of this. We have one process, and we're attacking that one as well. And so a lot of work on the digital thread. So now it's time to talk about how do we get the part to the end user. And we're making rapid strides in autonomous resupply, and I think Shane's going to talk a little bit about that. So at PC5 earlier this month, a heavy lift UAS flew. This got extended range, a significant payload, and it simulated the transport of ammunition or the cargo. It's much bigger than that one that's in the picture. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll test an autonomous watercraft at the second phase out in the Pacific. And so you think about the potential to couple the autonomous watercraft with an autonomous UAS that is significantly cheaper than buying a ship that holds a bunch of crew members that you fly a traditional helicopter off of. Think about the ability to do that at scale, let's say in the Pacific. So I would tell you all these principles enhance our capability to increase our precision and sustainment, reduce downtime, and are cost effective. Those are just a few examples, but those are the challenges that we're driving on. And so here's where we need your help. We have to collaborate closely with industry to ensure that we have the cutting edge technology, the cutting edge digital thread, the tech data necessary, whether we want to print parts and move them around a battlefield from Rock Island Arsenal, Kaiserslautern, Germany, the Philippines, or wherever. We need your help in this. Now, circling back to that scenario that I talked about, it all started with a broken HIMARS in a park. And this is another area where I need to foot stomp, where we really need your help. Look, right now in AMC, we have $240 million worth of delinquent back orders for parts. A significant portion of those are parts that are currently on a unit's deadline report somewhere. And so we need you to deliver the parts that we've ordered and paid for. And then at the same time, if you can't do that because of supply chain constraints, help us. Let us give access to the tech data, and let us try to manufacture them ourselves, either at the tactical level, if they're a simple polymer printed part, or all the way up to 3D printing titanium like we're doing at Rock Island. So work with us on this. I acknowledge that the tech data is a sensitive subject, but we got to have it, and we've got to work together on this as a team. Okay, all right, so as I mentioned earlier, we've learned a ton of lessons from the conflict in Ukraine, and AMC has been very involved in this. But one of the significant lessons we've learned is the importance, as always, of maintenance. So it's no secret that that change after 9/11, we went to a coin strategy. We went from 4 levels of maintenance down to 2 levels of maintenance, and so now we're taking a step back. I think Michelle might talk about this a little bit. We're taking a step back and re-examining what levels of maintenance that we have. We also, and with an eye on, we know we need to add additional maintenance capability into the force. But we also are realists, and we recognize that personnel pressures and strength limitations make it difficult for us to add more soldier maintainers. But it's also important to note that it's not just the soldiers who are doing maintenance on our tactical vehicles. And any given day, I have about 600 to 1,000 of my teammates at the Army Material Command out and about across the Army doing a wide variety of things, and that's fixing combat vehicles, fixing radars, installing radios, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a critical capability. And our depot maintenance teams, we call them flyaway teams, are making significant impacts on readiness. For example, when that visit at Fort Stewart, I went down there to visit one of our depot flyaway teams from Anniston Army Depot, who was working on vehicles for the 1st Brigade 3rd Infantry Division. And the tank that you see had been down in need of a depot repair for several months. So we, instead of bringing the tank to the depot, we brought the depot to the tank. And that guy sitting to the right of that gun turret, when I walked in, he was on the business end of a 1,000-pound torque wrench as he was working on that bore evacuator. And so I will tell you that when we inject that depot maintenance capability, we see immediate readiness returns. So we bumped that brigade's overall readiness in a couple of short weeks by 5%, their critical fleets by over 15%. And then we completed those depot level repairs. We saved $200,000 just in transportation costs instead of bringing that vehicle from Fort Stewart back to Anniston. Again, we brought the capability to Anniston. And so what we've learned is injecting depot level maintenance capabilities at the tackle edge leads to genuine gains in readiness, both in terms of equipment availability and overall operational capability. And when I go out and talk to division commanders and brigade commanders, the other piece, the intangibles, is the training that happens when our depot level technicians are working. So one of our, pick an average depot team that's working on Abrams, about 15 years worth of experience on that system, and that's the entire system. And oh, by the way, our guys that are doing that, they're not sitting there with their hands on their hips saying, do this, do this. They're saying, hey, watch me do this, and then you do the next one. And so they are down there, bare knuckles, dirty hands, turning wrenches with our soldiers, either in the motor pool or at the National Training Center. And that is powerful of what we see as we bake those skills into our soldiers. And so we took a step back and said, hey, we're doing this all around the Army. TACOM, CCOM, AMCOM, we've been sending depot teams out forever. And so we said, hey, how do we take a different approach and start adding layers to that depot level capability? And that's what takes us to our Operational Readiness Program, or ORP, which we kicked off last year. It's a powerful capability, and the most important part about this is that it is a commander's program. And when I say it's a commander's program, it's my program, it's General Pappas's program, it's Monty Roan's program. And so commanders are driving this program because it's important. We've taken a step back and said, hey, instead of at AMC, instead of being focused on fleet maintenance, what we found is that because we're a big Army, when we look at the fleet readiness, we mask problems that we have at specific units. And the ORP program is not only focused on fleets, it's on readiness, or unit readiness is focused on specific units. And so what we did was the first pilot that we are executing right now is a unit that is equipped with our enduring fleets. And so they are not the most new and modernized equipment sets. These are the M1A2 SEP V2s, the Bradley A3s, etc. You know the story. And so the goal of this ORP program is to add layers and make it a program versus just a 911, hey, we need some help in the motor pool. And again, it's partnered with FORCECOM and driven by commanders. So our initial goal was to increase unit level readiness, and I'll walk through the steps, but our initial goal was to increase unit level readiness by at least 10%. I think we've blown through that one. And I will tell you that we were shooting behind the duck on this one, and we're seeing much greater gains. So here's what it looks like. So the first step, and this is 1st Brigade, 1st Infantry Division, that has either the oldest set in Compo 1 or the second oldest. Flip a coin between 1st Infantry Division or 3-4 out at 4th ID. So the first thing we do is we synchronize with the unit at the ASARC, at FORCECOM's ASARC, which determines the cycle and the training and the deployment timeline for the unit. We picked a unit that was deploying. So we sent a team out starting in December, we sent a team out to Fort Riley And shoulder to shoulder, they TI'd all the vehicles in the brigade. And then we left, the unit ordered the parts. And so in that TI process, that's when that training starts happening, that relationship building starts happening. At the same time, we identified the dogs of the fleet. The dogs of the fleet are those vehicles that are consuming the most manpower and the most Class 9 dollars. And we're using, and oh, by the way, data baked into everything that we're doing with this process. After validating the tech inspections, they order the parts, and then when we hit that critical mass of the unit's training schedule, again, driven by the brigade commander, the depot team comes back and they start hanging those parts. At the same time, we start quarantining those vehicles that we're going to swap out. When I say the dogs of the fleet, we're in the process right now of swapping out 58 different systems of depot rebuilds. And that's a combination of M1s, of Bradleys, there's some wheels in there, there's an 88 in there, so it's 58 different systems as we've harvested, and we're doing it right now, we're harvesting those. And so what we're seeing is increased readiness on the spot. Just by putting the depot level teams in there, 10% bump with their M1, M2, and M3 fleets, and we think by the end of April, we will be 15-20% bump in their readiness. And the critical piece again is the maintainers that we're turning out, because when we're done, we will have had 3 deliberate touches with the unit maintainers. And that is going to be the secret sauce that really propels this program into the future. We're still collecting data that just came out of the box in NTC. One of the critical things that has happened, instead of bouncing hard at the end of the rotation, that readiness dip didn't go nearly as deep. And so we're seeing that staying power. And because this unit is deploying and we're collecting data the entire time, we're going to watch them all the way through their deployment and then measure the success or failures of this program, and then change it as necessary. But we're really excited about this. And I mentioned data again. Data is in everything that we're doing. So along with our RRP process, we're also attacking the load of a unit, because I believe that that our ASLs are like a lot of us in America. They've gotten big and fat, and so I put a mark on the wall and said, hey, look, I think we need to get our ASLs down from 4,500 lines to about 1,500, and everybody went, we can't do that. But I tell you, I think we're going to end up right about 2,500 lines. And so why 2,500? Because that's what the brigades are fighting with at the National Training Center. And we're not looking at it in just the concept of just one brigade. We're looking at the concept of the entire supply chain. And so we're taking the lessons learned by gathering that data, running algorithms on the data that we're gathering to not only inform what we're doing at Fort Irwin, California, Fort Riley, Kansas, but what we're doing is we build future ASLs at 2 strategic CONUS locations at the theater level, but also overseas. So we're connecting the dots, if you will. And again, this is what the brigades are fighting with at the National Training Center. And they're fighting with a much lighter load because of lethality on the battlefield. And they have to be able to move faster and with less flips. And we're also thinking about, again with data, we're rethinking our enterprise resource planning, or ERP strategy. So we're looking at, we've been stovepiped 5 major systems. The ones that we're really interested in, LMP, G-Army, GFIBs, they're all stovepiped. So how do we connect that? We have a strategy. I think that we're going to have to tweak that strategy as we move forward to take advantage of the work that you're doing. But in my view, agility layer that sits on top of it that helps those systems, those foundational systems, do things better. Again, improving our readiness and also enhancing the soldier experience. And we've got a couple of sprints that we're doing that we're really excited about for enhancing the ability for property accountability. It not only makes it easier for soldiers to account for their property, reduce the burden on company commanders, but also makes us more auditable. And so we see a future that says, hey, we're going to fix to the good enough the foundational systems, and then focus our efforts on that agility layer so that we can move faster and take advantage of the work that you're doing. And we're really, really excited about that. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we have a vision for the future that is not that far-fetched. I mean, we're a blue-collar organization, and we're doing blocking and tackling. And we know what that future looks like, and we know how to get there. We just have to have the intestinal fortitude and courage to do the right things, to pick winners and losers, to accelerate successful initiatives. And then, you heard me say, UAS, if the Army needs us to print UAS, we've shown that we can do it. We've shown that we can scale it. And if the Army decides not to, we'll move on to a next target, right? Some of the data work that we're doing, if it produces the results, then we'll do it. If it doesn't produce the results, we'll move to the next target. And we have to be agile. And this is where we really, really need your help. Help us with our agility. Help us with our agility. Challenge us. Look, I've got my list because there's opportunity. Remember I said that up front. There's opportunity. I've got my list of things that we're attacking that we have not been able to get over the finish line, that now we see opportunity to do that. I'm sure you all have your list. And so working together, we can get there. And so I want to express my sincere gratitude to all of our industry partners that are out there, that are helping us in this journey. And I want to thank AUSA for hosting this event. And what I'd like to do is take any questions that you have, and then we'll move on to the real meat, which is the panel that's coming up. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Mick Bednarek. Really appreciate you walking us through, collectively, everybody here in the audience. One of the areas that you did not touch on, and if you could expand a little bit, is the existing acquisition process and how for all of us in the defense industrial base, organic industrial base, how we may be able to assist as we kind of work through that. Some would say it's lethargic, it's old, it's process heavy, difficult to work through, etc. But if you could expand on that just a little bit, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. And I'll go particularly with software and data, right? We have to get better, and that's on both sides. One, don't try to sell us a boutique solution. It's got to swim with the fishes in the sea in that agility layer, right? You got to be prepared to have other people and other companies in that agility layer. At the same time, when we write requirements, documents, or contracts, we have to be careful of red flag language. And I've gotten a couple of speeding tickets for this. When you put things like develop, look, we don't want to develop software. That's the last thing that we want to do. We want to take commercial off-the-shelf software that you have developed and then use it to train our systems. That agility layer is, look, the ability that we're talking about with property accountability, that's relatively simple, low code. That is not an acquisition program. Everything is not an acquisition program, and we have to do a better job of upfront separating the wheat from the chaff, if you will. And we've got some great examples of how it's worked very, very well. We also have some great examples of how it's not worked and we've fumbled. And again, back to those speeding tickets. But no more boutique solutions. Swim with the fishes in the sea in that agility layer and train our systems to do to achieve the output that we need. Sir, thank you for your question.
General Mohan,
yes, sir.
Great brief. Thank you very much, Rod Pennywell Caliber. Could you talk a little bit more about the training implications that are now going to have to propagate through our Army when you start talking about things like the chat and the AI and the manufacturable parts that we can have both in theater and all the different locations that it might be, going all the way back to CONUS if you're in theater and so forth and so on, because now if we're going to be able to find the fastest solution for our soldiers in theater, then they're obviously going to need to know who's on deck to answer the question that soldier has if they all sit down. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's and that's a great question. So from a training aspect, we have conversations like, hey, the future distribution platoon at the brigade level is going to have a combination of autonomous vehicles and UAS. So how do we train that distribution platoon leader and platoon sergeant to control autonomous vehicles? Our watercraft, our future watercraft systems are going to have a mix of autonomous watercraft and traditional watercraft. So the harbor master and the mission command piece of that, how do we train them to do that? But the flip side is that our soldiers are look, they're so in tune with I'm just TDY to the digital world, by the way, but they grew up in that digital world. And what we see with our property accountability tool, that when we give them that capability that is basically a COTS capability, the training time goes from a traditional, you do net training and you would have to deploy a team down there. What we've done is our net is a systems engineer from our industry partner and some smart warrant officers and NCOs. And by the way, this property accountability thing was driven by our NCOs, led by a sergeant major. And so when you incorporated the tactical edge, that systems engineer and that warrant officer and that NCO, they fix the problems before they even start. And then when you give a soldier a tool that is really easy to use, we downloaded on, because it's an app, it looks like an app on your phone. We downloaded, I gave it to my aide, who's a pretty smart guy, been a company commander a couple of times, and we said, hey, go play around with this. And so he went and found the QR code, the IUID code on the Bradley that sits out in front of the AMC headquarters and scanned it, and now he's signed for it, by the way. But but it's intuitive. It's intuitive. So and you develop this, the intuitive piece that is your iPhone. And so we see great opportunities for harnessing what is ubiquitous in every American's life to accelerate that training timeline. And General Donahue is driving hard on this. How do we rethink the training process? But I don't think it's as hard as we think it is. Any other questions?
Morning, General.
Yes, sir.
Burns from Burns Research. We've met a couple of times through Jim Dwyer. You mentioned ASLs, and we've worked for the last 10 years to develop and refine ASL tools. We can predict at TRL-8 your ASLs, not only which ones you need, but the quantities you need and where you need them in the world, including down at the brigade level. How do we let you know that it's actually here? You can see it if you wanted to tomorrow. How do we let you know, or some of your team know, to see that?
Yeah, we'd love to partner with you on this because it's a challenge. It goes back to that $240 million worth of delinquent back orders. So the position of the ASL, the controlling of the amount of ASL is critically important. So we would love to partner with you on that so that we can see it. But I will challenge you though not to look backwards. We have to look forwards in how we're thinking about the future. And so it's not just about how many parts we have on the ASL. It's about how it's linked at the brigade level, with the theater level, and our tassels. And so how do we think about? Look, we've learned a lot of great lessons in our support with Ukraine about the power of having a mobilization and deployment platform that is Charleston, airfield, deep water port, heavy maintenance capability, and we have utilized that literally tens of thousands of times to support. So should we have a theater level ASL at a place like Charleston, and then should we pick a West Coast location and have another theater layer ASL? And then the modeling and the simulation that's fast enough so that we can do adds and subtractions from those theater ASLs in CONUS, and then also OCONUS based upon the units that are deploying. That modeling, we can do that like just snap your fingers and we can run those models right now. And then is our distribution system agile enough to make those puts and trades is the direction we're heading. And I also want to say that, again, harnessing the ingenuity of the American soldier, we've got some really, really good algorithms. We ran an internal to the Army competition, and said, hey, here's your curated data set for a brigade. Look out and predict the maintenance, and we have the answers to the test and a year out. And we've got a model that's about 95% accurate all the way down to the NSN level. That's gold to us. Now, we're going to pay the winner $10,000 of the, and it's all legal. So we're going to pay the winner $10,000 for this algorithm. That algorithm to us is worth tens of millions of dollars. And so we're not only rethinking, how we do the ASLs, but how do we get to the right answer on the ASLs? So thank you. Other questions?
Sir, thank you for being here. Let's give General Mohan a big round of applause.